This is not a coincidence. You did not click on this message by accident. The very fact that you are hearing these words right now is evidence that something divine is already moving in your life. Your DNA is being upgraded by the hand of God. Archangel Michael says you are being healed from a sickness you didn't even know you had. Open immediately. That urgency is not dramatic language. It is a heavenly alert. It is a divine interruption breaking into your normal routine. Heaven is not whispering. It is calling your attention because something irreversible has already begun. There are moments in life when God moves quietly, and there are moments when He moves decisively. This is the second kind. Before you understood it, before you sensed it, before you could even name what was wrong, the hand of God began touching the deepest part of your being. Not just your emotions, not just your thoughts, but your spiritual DNA, your identity, your inherited patterns, the invisible codes that have shaped your reactions, your fears, your limitations, and even your expectations. And Archangel Michael stands as a witness and a warrior in this hour, declaring that a hidden sickness has been located and is now being removed. You may be asking, what sickness? I feel normal. That is exactly why this revelation is so powerful. Some conditions do not shout, they whisper. Some afflictions do not collapse your body, they slowly drain your purpose. There are spiritual infections that hide behind routine. Generational weariness disguised as personality. Anxiety that you thought was just how you are. Fear that felt logical. Delays that seemed coincidental. But in the unseen realm, there has been a root system operating beneath the surface. A subtle distortion in your spiritual code. And the mercy of God has stepped in before it could fully manifest. When heaven says your DNA is being upgraded, it is speaking about restoration at the source. DNA is your blueprint. It determines structure, function, identity. Spiritually, it represents the core of who you are, the divine image imprinted within you before the world ever touched you. Over time, life experiences, trauma, spoken words, disappointments, and generational patterns can overlay that blueprint with distortions. Not enough to destroy you, but enough to delay you. Not enough to end your calling, but enough to confuse you. And confusion has been one of the silent symptoms. Archangel Michael's message is not casual. He is known as a protector, a defender, a warrior of light. When he speaks of healing, it signals that a battle has already taken place on your behalf. There was something attached to your spiritual structure that you were never meant to carry. A sickness not necessarily of the body, but of alignment. A subtle misalignment in how you see yourself, how you expect outcomes, how you receive love, how you approach opportunity. And because it was subtle, you adapted to it. You learned to live with it. You built coping systems around it. But God never intended for you to survive. He intended for you to thrive. This is why the message says, open immediately. Because delay is no longer permitted. The season of tolerating hidden dysfunction is over. The hand of God does not operate with hesitation when it comes to His chosen ones. And if this message is reaching you, it is because heaven has identified you as someone whose next season cannot begin until this upgrade is complete. Something extraordinary is ahead of you, and your internal coding must match the weight of your calling. Think about that for a moment. What if the struggles you thought were external were actually signals of an internal misalignment being corrected? What if the resistance you felt recently is not punishment but preparation? When God operates, He does not patch. He transforms. He does not adjust the surface. He reaches into the foundation. And foundations determine futures. There is also a reason this healing is happening before you fully recognize the sickness. is mercy. If you had seen the full extent of what was operating beneath the surface, it might have discouraged you. Instead, God chose to intervene quietly, to begin cleansing before you panicked, to begin restoring before you blamed yourself. This is the compassion of the Creator, acting on your behalf before you even knew how to ask. Right now, something is shifting. Even as you listen, there may be a stirring in your spirit, a sense that this message is describing you in ways that are too precise to ignore. That is not emotion. That is confirmation. The upgrade has already started. Patterns are being dismantled. Old reactions are losing their grip. Invisible chains you never saw are weakening. And the warrior presence of Archangel Michael stands guard during this transformation, ensuring that what God begins cannot be reversed. This is not hype. It is holy. It is not fantasy. It is divine surgery at the cellular level of your spiritual identity. And here's why this matters. When your DNA is upgraded, your destiny accelerates. When your internal blueprint is purified, your external reality begins to align. Opportunities that once passed you by will begin to recognize you. Peace will replace the tension you thought was normal. Clarity will silence confusion. And strength will rise in areas where weakness once whispered doubt. You are not late. You are not broken beyond repair. You are in the middle of a divine recalibration. The interruption you are experiencing right now is heaven saying, it is time. Time to remove what was hidden. Time to restore what was original. Time to step into a version of yourself that has always existed in God's design but was waiting for activation. And this is only the beginning. There are illnesses that shake the body, and then there are sicknesses that settle quietly into the soul. The message declared that you are being healed from a sickness you didn't even know you had. That statement alone should cause you to pause. Because what is more dangerous than a visible wound is an invisible condition. What is more threatening than an attack you can see is one that disguises itself as normal life. For years, you may have called it stress. You may have called it personality. You may have called it just how things are. But heaven has called it something else, a hidden interference in your spiritual design. This sickness did not necessarily make you collapse. It made you tolerate. It did not destroy your faith. It diluted your expectation. It did not erase your calling. It postponed your confidence. It showed up as spiritual fatigue that felt like adulthood. It manifested as emotional heaviness you couldn't explain. It whispered subtle lies. Don't try again. Stay small. Expect less. And because the voice was quiet, you adapted to it. You built a life around managing it instead of confronting it. Some of you inherited this sickness, not through blood in the physical sense, but through patterns. Generational fear. Cycles of lack. Repeated broken relationships. A family history of settling instead of soaring. You told yourself it was coincidence. But spiritually, there were codes passed down, belief systems etched into your subconscious before you were old enough to question them. This is as far as we go. People like us don't succeed. Love never lasts. These statements may never have been spoken directly, yet they were absorbed through experience. Others developed this hidden sickness through trauma. Words spoken over you in childhood. Rejection that carved silent scars. Failures that you never fully processed. You moved on, but the memory stayed stored deep within your inner framework. And over time, those unhealed fragments began influencing your reactions. You became cautious where you were meant to be bold. Defensive where you were meant to be open. Distrustful where you were meant to be discerning. The most deceptive part of this sickness is that it rarely announces itself. It feels logical. It feels protective. It feels responsible. You may have thought you were being wise by lowering your expectations. You may have believed you were guarding your heart by avoiding risk. But beneath those decisions was a subtle distortion, a spiritual misalignment convincing you to shrink instead of expand. Archangel Michael's declaration reveals something profound. Heaven sees what you normalize. While you adjusted to survival mode, God was observing the deeper pattern. While you convinced yourself that this is just life, heaven recognized that you were carrying something foreign to your original design. You were created with courage, clarity, resilience, and authority. Yet somewhere along the journey, interference entered the system. This interference can show up in many forms. Chronic self-doubt even when you are qualified. Procrastination when purpose is calling. Unexplained anxiety before stepping into new opportunities. A pattern of attracting situations that confirm your insecurities. These are not random. They are symptoms of a hidden spiritual infection that subtly altered your internal coding. And here is the truth that may surprise you. The enemy does not always attack loudly. Sometimes the strategy is erosion, slowly wearing down your vision, quietly draining your fire, convincing you to settle for partial healing instead of complete restoration. If you never recognize the sickness, you will never seek the cure. That is why this revelation is urgent. Awareness is activation. Right now, as this message resonates with you, something inside may be stirring. Memory surfacing. Patterns becoming clear. That is not coincidence. That is exposure. And exposure is the first step toward elimination. When light enters a hidden space, darkness loses its authority. If this message is confirming something deep within you, this is the moment to respond. Like this video as a sign of agreement with what God is revealing. Share it with someone who has been carrying a weight they cannot explain. Comment what part of this message speaks directly to your experience. And subscribe to this channel so you remain aligned with the prophetic guidance being released in this season. Your engagement is not just digital, it is declarative. It is you saying, I am ready for the upgrade. The hidden sickness you carried was never meant to define you. It was an intrusion, not an identity. And now, because heaven has intervened, the removal process has begun. You may feel unusual shifts, heightened awareness, emotional release, even discomfort. Do not fear it. When infection leaves the body, there is often sensation. When spiritual toxins are extracted, there can be turbulence. But turbulence is not destruction. It is transition. Understand this clearly. You were never weak. You were managing something unseen. You were navigating life with a slight distortion in your spiritual alignment. And despite that, you survived. Imagine what will happen now that the distortion is being removed. Imagine the clarity that will replace confusion. The courage that will replace hesitation. The peace that will replace subtle anxiety. Heaven is not just healing symptoms. It is addressing the source. The sickness you didn't know you had is being exposed, confronted, and eliminated, not by human effort, but by the hand of God. And when God heals, He restores beyond original condition. What you thought was simply who you are is being rewritten. What you accepted as permanent is being dissolved. And what felt normal is about to feel foreign, because your new normal will be freedom. This is the beginning of awareness. And awareness is power. There comes a moment in every divine transformation when God stops working around you and begins working within you. This is that moment. The message declared that your DNA is being upgraded by the hand of God, And now we step deeper into what that truly means. This is not surface correction. This is not behavior modification. This is not temporary motivation. This is foundational reconstruction. The hand of God is entering the very core of your spiritual framework, touching the place where identity is formed, where beliefs are anchored, where reactions are born before you even think about them. When Scripture speaks of God's hand, it symbolizes authority, power, and intentional design. The same hand that formed humanity from dust is the hand that now reaches into your inner structure. Imagine that. The Creator who wrote your original blueprint is revisiting it. Not because he made a mistake, but because life layered distortions over what was pure. And now he's peeling those layers back. Spiritually, your DNA represents inherited tendencies, internal agreements, subconscious expectations, and unseen patterns. Some of these were aligned with truth. Others were shaped by pain. Over time, you may have unknowingly accepted certain limitations as permanent. You may have believed that anxiety was simply part of your personality, that fear was wisdom, that hesitation was maturity. But when the hand of God touches your foundation, false identities begin to dissolve. This process can feel unusual. You may notice thoughts you once entertained easily now feel foreign. Conversations that once felt comfortable may now feel draining. Environments that once seemed normal may suddenly feel misaligned. That is not confusion. That is recalibration. When your internal coding changes, your external tolerance shifts. The hand of God does not ask permission from your past. It overrides it. It does not negotiate with generational patterns. It breaks them. If there were cycles of failure in your bloodline, they are being interrupted. If there were inherited fears passed down like heirlooms, they are being removed. If there were silent agreements you made with disappointment, I will never try again. I will never trust again. I will stay small to stay safe. Those agreements are being revoked. Archangel Michael stands as a guardian in this sacred operation. Because whenever God upgrades someone's spiritual DNA, resistance attempts to arise. Old habits try to reattach. Familiar insecurities try to reintroduce themselves. But heaven's warrior presence ensures that what is being cleansed cannot reclaim authority. You are not fighting this battle alone. In fact, the battle has already been addressed in the unseen realm. As the hand of God moves through your foundation, something extraordinary begins to happen. Your perception shifts. You start recognizing patterns you once ignored. You begin questioning belief you once defended. You notice emotional triggers losing intensity. Situations that once controlled your peace now fail to provoke the same reaction. That is evidence of upgrade. Understand this clearly. God is not just healing wounds. He is writing responses. He is not only removing fear, he is implanting boldness. He is not just silencing doubt. He is awakening authority. The sickness you didn't know you had was embedded in your automatic responses. It shaped how quickly you gave up, how easily you felt unworthy, how often you assumed the worst. But when God touches your spiritual DNA, your default setting changes. There may be moments during this transformation where you feel stretched, almost as if your inner world is expanding beyond its old capacity. That sensation is growth. It is the stretching of a container that was once too small for your destiny. You were never meant to carry small vision. You were never designed to live confined by inherited limitation. The hand of God is enlarging your spiritual structure to hold what is coming. And here is the powerful truth. This upgrade is happening even if you do not fully understand it. Divine work does not require complete human comprehension. Just as a child does not understand the complexity of surgery while it is saving their life, You may not grasp every detail of what God is adjusting within you, but the results will become undeniable. You will begin to speak differently, think differently, choose differently. You will find yourself walking away from things you once chased. You will feel courage rising in moments where fear once dominated. And slowly, almost quietly, you will realize that the version of you that operated under hidden sickness no longer exists. This is divine override. The hand of God is steady. It is precise. It is intentional. Nothing is random in this process. Every memory being stirred, every realization surfacing, every emotional release occurring. It is all part of purification at the root. Foundations determine stability, and God is ensuring that your next level is built on truth, not trauma. There is more happening than you can currently see, more being removed than you can measure, more being activated than you can yet imagine. And what comes next will reveal why this foundational shift was absolutely necessary. Type Divine Upgrade in the comments if you receive this transformation. Lesson code 314 is now activated over your life. Hold on, because what is about to be revealed next will make everything you've experienced begin to make sense. Your DNA is being upgraded by the hand of God, and this message is not just revelation. It is activation. When you sow into this mission, you are helping light reach someone who is still living under hidden spiritual sickness. Scripture declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over." This is not just a verse. It is God speaking directly to you, inviting you into the harvest. When you respond through super thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are placing seed into fertile spiritual ground. I believe in this assignment, and I invite you to stand with me in it. Let your giving become a prophetic act that pushes back darkness and releases healing to countless souls. As you sow, may open heavens respond over your household. Step into obedience and give now. Whenever God initiates a transformation at the level of your spiritual DNA, He does not leave you unguarded. He assigns protection. He releases reinforcement. And this is where the role of Archangel Michael becomes undeniable. This is not symbolic language meant to inspire imagination. This is spiritual reality. When foundations are being restructured and hidden sickness is being removed, opposition often attempts to resist the change. But heaven never begins a sacred operation without stationing a defender at the door. Archangel Michael is known in the heavenly order as a warrior, one who stands against darkness, one who contends for the purposes of God, one who protects those marked for divine assignment. When his presence is invoked in a message like this, it signals that what is happening in your life is significant. Upgrades require guarding. Breakthroughs require covering. And when your spiritual DNA is being purified, you enter a sensitive transition phase where the old is leaving and the new is forming. Think of it this way. When a house undergoes deep renovation, the structure is temporarily exposed. Walls are opened. Foundations are inspected. Hidden damage is removed. During that time, the building looks vulnerable. But that vulnerability is temporary and purposeful. In the same way, as God opens up your inner framework, exposing old patterns and dismantling invisible sickness, there is a period where you may feel emotionally exposed or spiritually stretched. That is when divine protection becomes critical. Michael's role in this season is to enforce what God has declared. If cycles are being broken, He ensures they do not reattach. If generational fear is being uprooted, He stands guard so it cannot reestablish itself. If old insecurities attempt to whisper again, His assignment is to silence what God has already canceled. You may not see this battle, but that does not make it less real. There are unseen confrontations taking place on your behalf. Some of you have noticed unusual resistance lately. Small obstacles appearing at strange moments. Sudden emotional triggers resurfacing just as you felt progress. This is not random chaos. It is often the final attempt of what once had access trying to maintain influence. But understand this clearly: when heaven authorizes an upgrade, it cannot be overturned. Opposition may attempt distraction, but it cannot reverse divine decision. Archangel Michael's presence also represents clarity. His role is not only defensive but strategic. During this upgrade, you will begin to discern more sharply. You will recognize environments that drain you. You will identify relationships that subtly limit you. You will sense when something is misaligned before it fully manifests. That heightened awareness is not paranoia, it is protection. There may be moments where you feel an internal tension, as if part of you is resisting change while another part is pulling forward. That is the friction between the old coding and the new blueprint. Michael's assignment includes stabilizing you during the tension, ensuring that confusion does not overwhelm you, ensuring that fear does not talk you out of transformation, ensuring that you remain steady while the internal renovation completes. It is important to understand that spiritual upgrades are not passive experiences. They shift your posture. They alter your decisions. They require alignment. You may feel prompted to release habits that once felt harmless. You may feel called to distance yourself from conversations that once seemed normal. You may sense a new seriousness about your purpose. These are not random impulses. They are evidence that your internal design is being recalibrated. Archangel Michael operates like a guardian of thresholds, and you are at a threshold right now. The version of you that carried hidden sickness is fading. The version of you that carries clarity, authority, and strength is emerging. Thresholds are sacred but intense spaces. You cannot stand in them forever. You must cross. And here is the reassuring truth: you are not crossing alone. There are moments when you may feel fatigue, not physical exhaustion, but spiritual processing. Old memories resurfacing briefly before disappearing. Emotional releases that seem to come without warning. That is purification. When toxins leave a body, there is often temporary discomfort. But the discomfort is proof of removal, not failure. Michael's presence ensures that what is being cleansed does not leave residue. When God removes something, He removes it thoroughly. When He breaks a cycle, He shatters its authority. When He upgrades your spiritual DNA, He seals the new coding with divine protection. You may begin to notice courage rising unexpectedly. Situations that once intimidated you now feel manageable. Conversations you once avoided now feel necessary. That shift is not personality change, it is empowerment. The war covering over your life is strengthening your internal structure so that you can stand without trembling. This is a sacred season, a refining season, a guarded season. The sickness you never knew you had is being removed under protection. The foundation being reconstructed is being shielded, and the destiny attached to your upgraded DNA is being secured. Heaven does not upgrade without defending. And because Archangel Michael stands watch, you can rest in this truth. What God is building within you will not be undone. When your spiritual DNA is being upgraded by the hand of God, the transformation does not remain invisible forever. It begins to produce symptoms. Not symptoms of sickness, but symptoms of healing. And here is where many people become confused. Because when change starts happening internally, it can feel unfamiliar. You may even wonder if something is wrong. But what if what feels unusual is actually evidence that everything is finally being made right? One of the first symptoms of a spiritual upgrade is emotional release. You may find yourself feeling deeply moved at unexpected moments. Tears may come without clear explanation. Memories you thought were resolved may briefly resurface. This is not regression. It is extraction. When God removes hidden sickness from your spiritual DNA, He often pulls it out through emotional channels. What was buried must surface before it disappears, and when it rises, it does so to leave, not to stay. Another symptom is heightened awareness. Suddenly, you see patterns clearly. You recognize behaviors you once justified. You discern motives, both yours and others, with sharper clarity. It may even feel like your senses are amplified. Conversations carry deeper meaning. Environments reveal hidden atmospheres. This increased discernment is part of the upgrade. Your internal coding is becoming more aligned with truth, and truth sharpens perception. You may also experience a growing discomfort in places that once felt normal. Certain friendships may begin to feel draining. Entertainment that once occupied your time may lose its appeal. Habits you once defended may now feel heavy. This is not judgment. It is alignment. When your spiritual structure is recalibrated, your tolerance shifts. You are no longer wired to thrive in environments that fed the old version of you. For some, there may even be physical sensations accompanying this transformation. Moments of warmth flowing through your body during prayer. Tingling sensations when reflecting deeply. Sudden waves of peace replacing anxiety. While not everyone experiences physical signs, for some they serve as reminders that spiritual activity can influence the body. Your spirit and body are interconnected. When one shifts, the other often responds. Sleep patterns may also change. You may find yourself dreaming more vividly. Old fears appearing in dreams and then dissolving. Symbols of doors, battles, water, light, or journeys emerging during the night. These dreams are not random imagination. Often, they are reflections of internal restructuring. Your mind is processing what your spirit is undergoing. Another symptom of spiritual upgrade is temporary disorientation. You may feel like you do not fully recognize yourself. Reactions that used to be automatic now require conscious thought. Old triggers fail to produce the same emotional surge. You may pause before responding where you once reacted instantly. This pause is powerful. It means the old programming is no longer in control. The upgrade is rewriting your default settings. At times, you might feel isolated, not abandoned, but set apart. Conversations may feel shallow. Certain relationships may naturally distance. It can feel lonely, but it is purposeful. When God upgrades you, He sometimes separates you briefly to stabilize the new coding. Isolation in this season is not rejection, it is protection. You may also experience sudden courage, an unexpected boldness rising within you. Opportunities you once avoided now seem approachable. Words you once swallowed now feel necessary to speak. That courage is not manufactured confidence. It is the result of hidden sickness being removed. Fear loses its authority when it no longer has roots in your spiritual DNA. There may even be moments of resistance. Old habits attempting to pull you back. Familiar doubts whispering one last time. This is normal. When something has occupied space within you for years, it does not leave quietly, but its voice will sound weaker. Its grip will feel looser, because the hand of God has already declared its removal. Perhaps one of the most beautiful symptoms of this upgrade is peace. Not temporary calm, but steady assurance. A quiet knowing that something is changing for the better. Even in uncertainty, you sense stability. Even in transition, you feel covered. That peace is confirmation. It is the signature of divine work. It is important not to misinterpret these symptoms as chaos. They are coordination. They are evidence that internal renovation is nearly complete. Just as construction sites look messy before revealing beauty, your internal world may feel unsettled before revealing strength. And here's what you must remember: symptoms of healing are not setbacks. Emotional waves do not mean you are failing. Temporary confusion does not mean you are lost. Discomfort does not mean danger. It means growth. The sickness you never knew you had is being flushed out. The old coding is being replaced. And every shift you are experiencing is part of the divine recalibration process. Soon, what feels unfamiliar now will become your new normal. Clarity will feel natural. Peace will feel steady. Courage will feel expected. And you will look back at this season and realize that what felt intense was actually sacred. You are not breaking down. You are being rebuilt. And when the rebuilding is complete, you will stand stronger than you ever imagined possible. One of the most powerful truths in this entire message is this: God began healing you before you even realized you were wounded. That alone reveals the depth of His mercy. While you were navigating life, adapting to pressures, managing responsibilities, and pushing through silent battles, heaven had already identified what needed to be removed. Before you had language for the discomfort, before you could define the heaviness, before you even suspected that something deeper was misaligned, God had already started the restoration process. This is how divine love operates. It does not wait for perfect awareness. It does not require flawless understanding. It moves from compassion, not from your comprehension. The sickness hidden in your spiritual DNA did not catch God by surprise. He saw the subtle fear that shaped your decisions. He saw the inherited patterns that limited your vision. He saw the emotional residue you carried from seasons you thought you had survived. And instead of exposing it in a way that would overwhelm you, He began healing quietly. There is something profoundly comforting about that. Because if healing depended solely on your awareness, many of us would remain stuck. Some wounds are so deeply embedded that we normalize them. We adapt to pain until it feels like personality. We build identities around coping mechanisms. We tell ourselves, this is just who I am. But God sees the difference between who you are and what happened to you. Healing before awareness is divine strategy. If God had revealed the full extent of the hidden sickness at once, it might have felt crushing. You might have questioned your strength. You might have felt shame for not noticing sooner. Instead, He chose restoration first and revelation second. He began cleansing your spiritual DNA while you were still living day-to-day life. Have you noticed subtle shifts recently? Moments where something that once triggered you no longer has the same power. Situations that once filled you with anxiety now feel manageable. Conversations that once intimidated you now feel neutral. That is evidence of healing that started before you consciously recognized the problem. God often heals roots before fruits. We tend to focus on external outcomes, relationships, finances, opportunities, visible success. But heaven focuses on foundations. If the root carries sickness, the fruit will reflect distortion. So instead of immediately changing your circumstances, God changes your internal structure. He corrects the spiritual coding that influences how you respond to those circumstances. Consider how many times you prayed for a breakthrough without realizing the breakthrough required internal recalibration first. You asked for open doors, but your internal belief system still carried doubt. You asked for healthy relationships, but your spiritual DNA still carried fear of abandonment. You asked for elevation, but your inner narrative still whispered unworthiness. God, in His wisdom, began healing the root so that when the fruit appears, you are prepared to sustain it. This kind of healing protects your future. It safeguards the blessings that are coming. Because without inner restoration, outer increase can become overwhelming. But with upgraded spiritual DNA, you can carry what is destined for you without collapsing under its weight. There is also generational significance in this process. The sickness you did not know you carried may have originated long before you. Patterns passed down quietly. Trauma absorbed through environment. Beliefs inherited without examination. By healing you, God is interrupting a lineage of limitation. He is ensuring that what flowed into you does not flow through you to the next generation. You may not have realized you were the turning point in your family line. But healing before awareness often marks someone chosen to break cycles. The quiet restoration happening within you is not only personal, it is generational. At times, you may reflect on your past and suddenly see it differently. Moments that once confused you now make sense. Decisions you once regretted now reveal hidden lessons. That clarity is part of post-healing awareness. Once the infection is removed, vision sharpens. You are no longer interpreting life through distortion. There may also be grief. Not because something is wrong, but because you are recognizing how long you carried what you were never meant to hold. That grief is natural. Allow it to pass through. It is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of awakening. The beauty of healing before awareness is that it removes shame from the equation. You are not behind. You are not negligent. You are not spiritually deficient. You were simply human, navigating life with limited visibility. And God, in His sovereignty, stepped in. Now that awareness is catching up with healing, you are beginning to understand what hath been happening beneath the surface. The upgrade did not start today. It started when you first felt restless with the old version of yourself. It started when certain habits lost their comfort. It started when dissatisfaction with normal began to rise. You were being prepared. The sickness you never knew you had is losing its final traces. The hidden distortions are dissolving. And as awareness increases, you are not discovering brokenness. You are discovering restoration that was already underway. This is not random transformation. It is intentional mercy. And what God heals before you recognize, He restores in a way that cannot be undone. There is something profoundly intentional about the way this message speaks of DNA. DNA is not a casual metaphor. It is the blueprint of life itself. In the natural world, DNA carries instructions, how cells function, how traits are expressed, how structure is formed. It is the invisible code that determines visible outcomes. And when Archangel Michael declares that your DNA is being upgraded by the hand of God, it is not poetic exaggeration. It is a spiritual parallel to a biological truth. When the code changes, the expression changes. Science tells us that DNA holds information passed down through generations. It carries inherited traits, predispositions, and tendencies. But even science now acknowledges something remarkable. Gene expression can be influenced. Certain genes can be activated or silenced based on environment, experience, and internal conditions. This concept, often referred to as epigenetics, reveals that inheritance is not destiny. There is room for override. Spiritually, this is powerful. If natural DNA can be influenced, how much more can spiritual DNA be transformed by the Creator who designed it? God is not bound by biological limitations. He authored the code. He understands its structure beyond human comprehension. When he decides to upgrade your spiritual DNA, he is not working against nature, he is working above it. Your spiritual DNA represents your divine identity. It carries the imprint of being created in the image of God. It contains purpose, authority, creativity, resilience, and capacity. But over time, life experiences can suppress certain expressions of that identity. Trauma can silence boldness. Rejection can suppress confidence. Failure can dampen innovation. Just as environmental factors influence gene expression in the natural world, life circumstances influence how your spiritual identity manifests. The hidden sickness we have been speaking about operated like a suppressor. It did not erase your design, but it muted it. It caused certain divine traits within you to remain dormant. Courage was there but quiet. Vision was present but blurred. Authority existed but unclaimed. When God upgrades your spiritual DNA, He is reactivating what was always meant to function fully. This is why the transformation feels deeper than surface motivation. It is not about trying harder, or thinking more positively. It is about internal reprogramming. It is about divine activation of dormant strength. When the original designer steps in, he does not guess. He restores with precision. Consider how many times you have felt capable of more, yet restrained by something intangible. You sensed potential, but a hesitation held you back. You recognized opportunity, but doubt spoke louder. That tension was not proof of inadequacy. It was evidence of suppressed coding. Your spiritual DNA contained capacity, but the hidden sickness limited its expression. Now, as the upgrade unfolds, you may feel a surge of clarity. Ideas forming more easily. Decisions becoming firmer. Confidence rising without external validation. That is activation. It is the re-expression of what was always present but partially silenced. There is also a profound connection between spirit and body. When internal beliefs shift, physical posture changes. When identity strengthens, hormones regulate differently. When stress decreases, the body responds with calm. The spiritual upgrade does not exist in isolation from your physical reality. As fear is removed, tension decreases. As peace increases, the nervous system stabilizes. The connection between science and spirit is not conflict, it is continuity. God, as the original architect of life, designed systems that reflect His order. The more aligned you become spiritually, the more your entire being moves toward harmony. This does not mean you will never face challenges. It means your internal coding will no longer sabotage your external progress. Another powerful aspect of this connection is authority. In the natural world, DNA dictates what is possible within a species. A tree does not produce fruit outside its coding. A bird does not suddenly function as a fish. DNA defines boundaries. Spiritually, however, your coding was written by a limitless creator. That means your capacity extends beyond human limitation when aligned with Him. The upgrade happening within you is expanding your perception of what is possible. You are beginning to see beyond inherited ceilings. You are questioning assumptions you once accepted. You are realizing that some limitations were never part of your original design. They were environmental overlays. When God upgrades, He restores you to intended expression. He removes suppressors. He activates strength. He recalibrates belief. He aligns you with truth at the deepest level. And here is what makes this moment so significant. You are not evolving randomly. You are being intentionally restored. This is not self-development. It is divine redevelopment. It is the Creator stepping into His creation and saying, "Let there be alignment." The science of DNA shows us that small changes at the molecular level can produce profound differences in outcome. Spiritually, the same principle applies. A shift in core identity can alter the trajectory of an entire life. You may not see all the results immediately, but internal changes precede external manifestation. Just as cells replicate based on updated coding, your decisions will begin to reflect your upgraded identity. Your boundaries will strengthen. Your voice will steady. Your expectations will elevate. This is not imagination. It is restoration of blueprint. Your DNA, your spiritual code, is being brought back into alignment with divine intention. And when alignment occurs, acceleration follows. The designer has touched the design, and nothing remains the same after that. There are agreements you remember making, and then there are agreements you never realized you signed. Not with ink, not with words spoken out loud, but with belief, with reaction, with repeated surrender to patterns that felt stronger than you. And now, as your DNA is being upgraded by the hand of God, something sacred and powerful is happening. You are being released from ancient agreements that were never authorized by heaven. An agreement, in spiritual terms, is alignment. It is when your thoughts, even unconsciously, come into harmony with something that is not truth. It can happen subtly. A disappointment leads to a silent conclusion. Nothing ever works out for me. A betrayal plants a seed. I can't trust anyone. A financial struggle becomes a declaration. I will always lack. These statements may never have left your lips audibly, but they settled into your internal coding. Over time, they became filters through which you interpreted life. Some agreements go back even further. Patterns embedded in family lines, repeated cycles of brokenness, histories of addiction, fear, instability, or emotional suppression. You may have grown up observing these patterns so consistently that they felt inevitable. Without realizing it, you internalized them as part of your identity, not because you chose them consciously, but because they were familiar. But familiarity does not equal destiny. As God upgrades your spiritual DNA, He is not only healing wounds, He is canceling contracts. He is dissolving alignments that were formed in pain. He is breaking spiritual signatures that were attached to fear, rejection, limitation, and doubt. What once felt like an unbreakable pattern is now being exposed as a removable attachment. You may notice resistance during this stage. Old thoughts trying to reassert themselves. Familiar insecurities attempting to regain influence. Situations appearing that seem to mirror past cycles. This is not failure, it is confrontation. When an agreement is being revoked, it often makes one final attempt to prove its authority. But it no longer has legal ground in your life. The breaking of ancient agreements is not loud. It is decisive. It happens in the quiet moments when you choose not to believe the old narrative. It unfolds when you respond differently to a familiar trigger. It solidifies when you declare truth over thoughts that once controlled you. Each time you reject an old pattern, you weaken its hold permanently. There is power in recognizing that some of what you carried was never yours to begin with. Generational fear was not your inheritance. It was an interruption. Cycles of emotional distance were not your personality. They were learned survival mechanisms. Chronic self-doubt was not humility. It was distortion. And distortion cannot survive in the presence of divine light. As these agreements break, you may feel a lightness that is unfamiliar. Decisions may come with clarity instead of confusion. Opportunities may appear without immediate fear. Relationships may shift as you no longer operate from old wounds. It can feel almost disorienting because you are stepping into freedom you have never experienced before. There is also a spiritual authority rising within you during this stage. You are beginning to sense that you have permission to choose differently, permission to expect more, permission to walk away from what once defined you. This authority is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is the natural result of divine upgrade. Ancient agreements lose their power when truth is embraced. And truth is this: you were never designed to live under inherited limitation. You were never meant to carry emotional residue from generations past. You were never called to repeat cycles that diminished your calling. Your spiritual DNA was authored for freedom, not captivity. This breaking may also create separation. Certain dynamics may no longer feel compatible. Conversations rooted in negativity may become exhausting. Old environments may feel misaligned. That separation is not loss, it is release. When agreements break, attachments shift. Do not fear the silence that may follow. When old voices fade, there is often a quiet space before the new clarity fully settles. That silence is sacred. It is the sound of chains falling without announcement. You are not losing yourself. You are shedding what was never authentically you. And what comes next seals this transformation in a way you may not yet expect. The freedom you are stepping into is not temporary. It is foundational. You will be glad you remained open for what is about to unfold. Type "I break the cycle" in the comments if you receive this release. Blessing code 582 is now activated over your life. As ancient agreements break and new freedom rises, this mission continues to reach those still bound by silent contracts. When you sow into this work through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are helping break chains in lives you may never physically meet. The word declares that when you sow beside many waters, you will reap in due season. This is God inviting you into eternal impact. I believe this message is not just content, it is deliverance for someone searching in the dark. Let your seed become light. Let your giving echo the freedom you are experiencing right now. As you release your support, may every ancient limitation over your household be shattered. Step into this prophetic act and give now. When ancient agreements break and hidden sickness is removed, something extraordinary begins to emerge: your true spiritual identity. Not the version shaped by fear. Not the version conditioned by disappointment. Not the version that survived by shrinking. But the version that was written in heaven before you ever experienced limitation. This is the stage where you stop merely being healed and start becoming revealed. Your new spiritual identity is not something you manufacture. It is something you uncover. It has always existed beneath the layers. The upgrade to your spiritual DNA did not create a different person. It restored the original design. And now, as that design comes into focus, you may feel both excitement and unfamiliarity. Because stepping into who you truly are can feel just as uncomfortable as leaving behind who you were pretending to be. One of the first signs of this new identity is confidence without arrogance. You no longer need external validation to feel secure. Compliments are appreciated but not required. Criticism is processed but not internalized as identity. You are beginning to operate from internal stability rather than external approval. That stability is the fruit of recalibrated spiritual coding. You may also notice a shift in how you carry yourself. Your posture changes. Your tone steadies. Your decisions become less reactive and more intentional. You pause before speaking, not out of fear, but out of clarity. You choose relationships with discernment rather than desperation. You approach opportunities with courage rather than hesitation. These are not personality adjustments, they are identity manifestations. Your new spiritual identity also carries boundaries. In the past, you may have overextended yourself to keep peace. You may have tolerated disrespect to avoid confrontation. You may have said yes when your spirit whispered no. But now, something within you refuses misalignment. You understand that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is stewardship. The upgrade within you has strengthened your internal structure, and you are no longer willing to compromise it. There is also a deepening sense of purpose. Tasks that once felt random now feel connected. Delays that once frustrated you now appear strategic. You begin to see your life as part of a larger narrative. The confusion that once clouded your direction starts to lift. You are not drifting anymore. You are aligning. With this new identity comes discernment. You can sense when something is not right, even if you cannot immediately articulate why. You feel shifts in atmospheres. You recognize subtle manipulation. You identify patterns quickly. This discernment is not suspicion. It is spiritual awareness sharpened by healing. When distortion leaves your internal coding, clarity becomes natural. There may be moments when others notice the change before you fully do. They may comment that you seem different, stronger, quieter but more grounded, less reactive, more focused. Some will celebrate it. Others may feel uncomfortable because your growth disrupts familiar dynamics. But understand this. When you upgrade, not everyone upgrades with you. Your new spiritual identity is not for performance. It is for purpose. It prepares you to carry what is coming. Opportunities that once would have overwhelmed you will now feel manageable. Responsibilities that once felt intimidating will now feel aligned. The internal strengthening you have undergone was necessary for the external elevation ahead. You will also begin to speak differently over your life. Where you once declared defeat, you now declare possibility. Where you once assumed the worst, you now expect alignment. Your words shift because your beliefs have shifted, and belief is the foundation of manifestation. But here is something important. Identity must be walked out consistently. The old coding may attempt to resurface in moments of stress. Familiar doubts may whisper when you face new challenges. This is not regression. It is testing. And each time you choose the new response over the old reaction, you reinforce the upgrade. Identity solidifies through repetition of truth. You are no longer the person who tolerated hidden sickness. You are no longer bound by ancient agreements. You are no longer operating under distorted self-perception. You are stepping into clarity, authority, and alignment. If this transformation is resonating with you, take a moment to declare it openly. Comment below what new identity you are stepping into. Like this message as a sign that you are embracing your upgrade. Share it with someone who needs to understand that their identity is not defined by their past. And subscribe to this channel so you remain connected to the prophetic insight guiding this journey. Your engagement is not just participation, it is proclamation. There is a difference between surviving and standing. You are no longer merely surviving circumstances. You are standing in authority. Your presence will begin to shift rooms. Your decisions will begin to influence outcomes. Your peace will become contagious. This is the emergent stage, the unveiling of who you were always meant to be. The sickness is gone. The agreements are broken. The foundation is strengthened. Now you walk differently. And what comes next will reveal why this identity shift was absolutely necessary for the assignment ahead. There is a reason this revelation had to be uncovered. There is a reason the hidden sickness operated quietly. There is a reason the upgrade to your spiritual DNA is happening with such intensity. Because if you had fully understood who you were carrying inside you all along, you would have walked differently much sooner. And there are forces that benefit from your ignorance more than your awareness. The enemy's greatest strategy is not always destruction, it is concealment. If your calling cannot be stolen, it can be delayed. If your purpose cannot be erased, it can be distracted. If your destiny can't be denied, it can be clouded. And the easiest way to cloud a person's destiny is to distort their identity. When you do not know who you are, you accept less. You settle for environments that shrink you. You tolerate relationships that weaken you. You doubt opportunities that were designed for you. You speak against yourself without realizing you are doing it. Ignorance of identity becomes agreement with limitation. The hidden sickness embedded in your spiritual DNA was not random interference. It was strategic obstruction. It subtly influenced how you saw yourself. It magnified your flaws while minimizing your strength. It reminded you of past mistakes while silencing future vision. It created hesitation at moments that required boldness. And because it operated quietly, you assumed the voice was your own. But it was distortion. The enemy did not want you to know that your spiritual DNA carries authority. That your bloodline, despite its imperfections, contains resilience. That your mind is capable of clarity beyond fear. That your presence carries influence. That your prayers shift atmospheres. If you had known that fully, you would have stepped into rooms differently. You would have made decisions with conviction. You would have resisted manipulation. You would have expected victory. Instead, the hidden sickness kept you in analysis paralysis, overthinking, second-guessing, minimizing yourself in conversations, apologizing for your existence, questioning your worth. It convinced you that staying small was safer than standing tall. But what the enemy did not account for was divine intervention. When God decides to upgrade your spiritual DNA, concealment loses its power. Light exposes distortion. Truth dismantles deception. Awareness restores authority. And suddenly, the tactics that once worked on you begin to fail. The same thoughts that once intimidated you now sound weak. The same fears that once stopped you now feel exaggerated. The same insecurities that once defined you now feel foreign. There is also a deeper layer to this. The enemy did not want you to know the generational impact attached to your healing. When cycles break in one person, they do not just free that individual, they shift a lineage. If fear stops with you, it cannot transfer forward. If self-doubt dissolves within you, it cannot embed in the next generation. If emotional suppression ends in you, authenticity begins after you. That is why the battle around your identity was persistent. You were not just fighting for personal peace, you were unknowingly standing at the intersection of generational transformation. The enemy thrives in patterns. Repetition creates predictability. Predictability creates control. But when your DNA is upgraded, patterns are interrupted. Predictability is broken, and control is lost. A loss of control is what resistance reacts to. You may have noticed that just before major breakthroughs, challenges intensified, confusion increased, doubt amplified, distractions multiplied. That was not coincidence. It was escalation. Because when someone is close to awakening to their true identity, opposition attempts final interference. But here is the truth that changes everything. What is revealed cannot be unrevealed. Once you see distortion for what it is, it loses its authority. Once you recognize your identity, you cannot unknow it. Once you step into upgraded spiritual coding, you cannot comfortably return to the old version of yourself. The enemy did not want you to know that your weakness was never permanent, that your fear was never final, that your past was never predictive of your future, that your identity was never defined by your lowest moment. And now you know. You know that the sickness was not you. You know that the patterns were not destiny. You know that the hesitation was distortion. You know that your design is stronger than your history. This awareness is dangerous to the forces that benefited from your limitation, but it is liberating to you. You are no longer easily manipulated by insecurity. You are no longer controlled by fear of rejection. You are no longer paralyzed by the possibility of failure. The upgrade within you has recalibrated your responses. You stand steadier. You think clearer. You decide faster. You recover quicker. The enemy did not want you to know that you were always carrying this strength. But now that it hath been activated, it cannot be deactivated. And this is precisely why what comes next is so critical. Because awareness is only the beginning. Activation is unfolding. Assignment is approaching. The concealment phase is over. You see clearly now. And clarity changes everything. There comes a point in every divine transformation where healing turns into activation. You have moved through awareness. You have felt the upgrade. You have watched ancient agreements break and hidden sickness dissolve. You have seen your identity begin to emerge with new clarity. But now, this is the moment where everything aligns intentionally. This is not just about what God has done for you. It is about what is now being awakened within you. Activation is different from healing. Healing restores what was damaged. Activation releases what was dormant. Healing removes distortion. Activation ignites design. And right now, as your spiritual DNA has been recalibrated, heaven is not simply content with you being whole. Heaven is ready for you to function. You may have sensed the shift already. The growing restlessness that is not anxiety, but anticipation. A feeling that something is about to begin. A quiet urgency that says, it is time. That sensation is not imagination. It is alignment. Your internal coding has been upgraded, and now your spirit recognizes that the next chapter requires movement. Activation often begins with voice. The words you speak carry weight. After a spiritual upgrade, declarations land differently. When you speak life over yourself now, it resonates with truth instead of insecurity. When you declare peace, it settles deeper. When you speak confidence, it feels natural instead of forced. Your voice is aligning with your new identity. There is power in consciously agreeing with what God has already initiated. This is where you step into partnership with the transformation. You are not passively waiting for change anymore. You are participating in it. Activation means you begin to act in accordance with your upgrade. You respond as someone healed. You decide as someone aligned. You step forward as someone strengthened. There may be opportunities that appear suddenly. Conversations that require boldness. Decisions that demand clarity. Do not interpret these as pressure. They are invitations. Activation often presents itself through responsibility. Not burden, but responsibility aligned with capacity. And now, you have the internal structure to carry what once would have overwhelmed you. You may notice increased resistance as well. But this resistance feels different from before. It no longer intimidates you. It challenges you. There is a difference. Intimidation shrinks you. Challenge sharpens you. The upgraded DNA within you recognizes obstacles as stepping stones rather than stop signs. The shift in perception is one of the clearest indicators that activation is underway. Another sign of activation is sensitivity to purpose. Activities that once felt satisfying may now feel empty if they lack alignment. You crave meaning more than comfort. You desire impact more than approval. This is not discontent. It is refinement. Your internal compass has been recalibrated, and it now points toward assignment. Activation also requires trust. Not blind faith, but informed confidence. You have seen the healing. You have experienced the shift. You have felt the chains fall. And now, trust that the one who upgraded your spiritual DNA knows how to guide your next steps. You do not need the entire map. You need obedience in the next movement. There may be moments where you hesitate, remembering who you used to be. But that version no longer defines you. The sickness is gone. The agreements are broken. The identity has shifted. When old thoughts attempt to reintroduce themselves, you will recognize them immediately, and recognition removes their authority. Activation is also communal. As you step into your renewed identity, others will feel it. Your presence will influence conversations. Your stability will calm chaos. Your clarity will inspire confidence. Not because you are trying to lead, but because alignment naturally radiates. This is not the season to hide. It is not the time to retreat into the comfort of anonymity. The upgrade was not performed for silence. It was performed for expression. Your voice carries insight now. Your perspective carries wisdom. Your decisions carry impact. There is a sacred seriousness to this moment. Not heaviness, but significance. You are crossing from preparation into participation, from healing into functioning, from restoration into responsibility. And here is what must be understood. Activation does not require perfection. It requires willingness. You will still learn. You will still grow. You will still refine. But you will not operate from distortion anymore. You will move from clarity. Right now, as you hear these words, make a quiet agreement with your new identity. Affirm that you will not shrink back into old patterns. Declare that you will walk in alignment with the upgrade you have received. Speak life over your path. Align your actions with your healing. The activation moment is not loud. It is decisive. It is the internal shift that says, I am ready. And when readiness meets divine timing, acceleration follows. You are no longer preparing to become. You are becoming. The foundation is strong. The coding is clear. The identity is aligned. Now you move. This is the moment where everything comes together. You began this journey hearing the words, your DNA is being upgraded by the hand of God. Archangel Michael says you are being healed from a sickness you didn't even know you had. And now, after walking through revelation, healing, breaking of ancient agreements, identity restoration, and activation, you can see it clearly. You are not the same. The hidden sickness that once operated quietly in your spiritual coding no longer has influence. The distortion that shaped your reactions has been removed. The silent agreements formed in pain have been broken. The cycles that once repeated themselves without explanation have been interrupted. What once felt normal now feels foreign because your definition of normal has changed. You have been recalibrated. The hand of God did not merely comfort you, it corrected you. It did not simply encourage you, it reconstructed you. It reached into the deepest part of your spiritual framework and restored alignment at the source. And when the source is healed, the stream flows differently. Look at how far you have come in this message alone. At the beginning, there was mystery, a hidden sickness, an unseen interference, something operating beneath your awareness. But now there is clarity. You understand that what you carried was not your identity. You understand that fear was not your design. You understand that limitation was not your destiny. And more importantly, you understand that you are chosen. There is something powerful about realizing that heaven intervened on your behalf before you even asked. That while you were navigating life, God was already removing obstacles from within you. That while you thought you were simply enduring, divine surgery was taking place beneath the surface. You were never abandoned. You were being upgraded. Now the new you stands where the old you once struggled. The new you thinks with clarity instead of confusion. The new you responds with peace instead of panic. The new you sets boundaries without guilt. The new you walks into rooms without shrinking. The new you expects alignment instead of anticipating disaster. This transformation is not temporary emotion. It is foundational change. There will still be challenges. Life will still present opportunities that stretch you. But now you are equipped differently. You are responding from upgraded spiritual DNA. You are operating from restored identity. You are moving with divine protection and awareness. And here is the most beautiful truth of all. This upgrade is not fragile. What God restores, He sustains. What He activates, He protects. What He aligns, He advances. You do not have to fear losing this transformation. You do not have to strive to maintain it through human effort alone. The same hand that upgraded you is the hand that will steady you. As you move forward, remember this season. Remember the subtle shifts. Remember the moments of realization. Remember the release. Because there may come a day when you look back and realize this was the turning point. The moment you stopped surviving and started aligning. The moment you stopped tolerating and started transforming. The sickness you didn't know you had is gone. The chains you didn't see have fallen. The identity you didn't fully recognize has emerged. And now you walk in it. Type "I receive my NEWDNA" in the comments if you stand in agreement with this transformation. Lesson code 909 is now activated over your life. May peace guard your mind. May clarity guide your decisions. May courage fuel your steps. May protection surround your path. And may the upgrade that began in silence now manifest in visible favor, open doors, and divine alignment. You are not who you were. You are restored. You are aligned. You are activated. And heaven is not finished with you yet. As this message closes, understand that what you experienced here is more than words. It is movement in the spirit. When you sow into this mission through Super Thanks, membership, or PayPal using the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are helping carry this healing to someone who is still living under hidden distortion. The Lord says, as you give, it will be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. This is not a transaction. It is participation in divine harvest. I invite you to stand with this calling and let your seed become light in someone else's darkness. As you release your support, may multiplied favor return to your household. Step into obedience. Give boldly. Activate blessing through your generosity.